What's up, YouTube? This is Bystander X79 and I'm coming to you today with my updated deck profile for 6 Samurais in the May 2018 format. Guys, I can tell you this right now, 6 Samurais has been a favorite deck of mine, and I can not believe, with all the new stuff we've gotten, how epic this deck has become. I've been testing this deck, and oh my god. I mean, 6 Samurais were nutty before, but this shit has nuts. Oh man. Just the things it can do are amazing. Guys, I'm literally for a loss of words with what this deck can do. I'm just going to show it to you right now. Alright, first off, like always, we're going to start with the monsters. Currently, I am now running 2 copies of Elder of the 6 Samurai. Now, Elder of the 6 Samurai is the Cyber Dragon type monster for the 6 Samurais deck. Basically, if your opponent has a monster you can special summon it, so it's technically a free monster. It's a level 3, which means you can go into rank 3 plays a little bit easier. It is the asceticism target to help bring out Kagamusha, or you can do it vice versa, so you can access Legendary 6 Samurai, or Legendary 6 Samurai Shian, or Nuttier Beast. The fact that it's a level 3 makes it a lot easier to bring out with cards like Isolde, or even Shien's Dojo. Alright, I run this single copy of Grandmaster. Special summon this when you control a different named 6 Samurai monster on the field. And if it ever is destroyed by your opponent's card effect, you get a 6 Samurai monster back from your graveyard. You can only control one of these things face up right now, and one's all really what you need. Alright, one new card that I'm actually running in now is I'm actually managed to get Great Shogun Shien back into the deck. Great Shogun Shien has a continuous effect when it's face up in the field. Basically, your opponent's only allowed to activate 1 spell or trap card per turn. With the negation effects of Legendary 6 Samurai Shien, Nuttier Beast, and that one other synchro monster in this deck, you pretty much can control what your opponent's going to be able to do. You negate what you don't want them to activate, you let pass what you do want them to activate, and then that's it. They're not activating any other spell or traps during their turn. This guy helps you lock down the duel a lot more easier, and really cool thing about it is that if you can get them out very fast if you have 2 copies of any 2 6 Samurai monsters on the field. Okay, just like in my previous deck build, Kagamusha of the 6 Samurai, Earth Attribute, Warrior Tuner monster. I love running this guy at 3. I think he's the key tuner that you need to be keeping at 3. Cool thing about it is that he can also be used as a way to protect your other 6 Samurai monsters if he's face up on the field by redirecting anything that targets a 6 Samurai monster to itself. So don't forget that secondary effect. A lot of people do. They just use him as a tuner. Alright, of course you have Legendary 6 Samurai Inishi. Inishi's pretty awesome. Banish 2 6 Samurai monsters from your graveyard. Bounce a card off your field. Very good in this format. To get Link monsters off the field and this wreck your opponent's Pronto strategies. It does boost us up by 500 attack points when you have 2 or more other 6 Samurai monsters on the field. So it goes up to 2200. And you can set a system out with Kageki, with Legendary 6 Samurai Kageki, and another 6 Samurai monster on the field. And speaking of which, I still run 3 copies of Legendary 6 Samurai Kageki. Kageki, you normal summon them, you special summon another 6 Samurai monster from your hand. Its attack does go up by 1500 when you do that. If he's face up on the field by himself, he's an asceticism target for Secret 6 Samurai Fuma. So keep that in mind. Alright. Linchpin of the deck, you can't be running 6 Samurais without Legendary 6 Samurai Kizan. This is the card you're going to want to search off of Gateway, Rhoda, And you want to be recycling them out of the graveyards, because as long as you have a 6 Samurai monster on the field, you keep summoning this guy back out, and he basically helps build your field. Alright, and like I said, Secret 6 Samurai Pumas in this deck. I only run this is the only Secret 6 Samurai monster I feel that's worth running. This guy is a floater, so whenever he's popped by battle or card effect, you get to special summon any 6 Samurai monster from your deck to your field. Level 1 tuner, which is great for helping to build up in synchros. Other thing about it is that while it's in the graveyard, you can banish it, and it can actually protect your other 6 Samurai monsters on the field from being destroyed by card effects. Alright, last but not least, the 6 Samurai Sanji. He's in Ascendant System target for Legendary 6 Samurai Kazan. Basically, with this particular build, you want to be getting multiple monsters on the field ASAP to help build up your field. If he's on the field with another 6 Samurai monster and he attacks an opponent's monster, you basically can destroy both that monster that it attacked, even if it's going to be destroyed. Alright, so that's it for my 6 Samurai monster lineup. We're going to be going into the spells. Alright, now the spells I've divided into a few things. One thing is that I actually put in a brand new drawer engine. And with this card right here, Broken Bamboo Sword, you know which one I'm doing. I'm using the Bamboo Sword drawer engine, which is really crazy. Bamboo Sword is basically just a equip spell. The monster doesn't gain any attack. Don't worry about this being equipped to your opponent's monster. It's still going to be on your field, and you can still activate other cards to get your drawer going. Just saying. Of course, I also run 3 copies of Cursed Bamboo Sword. Now, Cursed Bamboo Sword is actually pretty cool. Just like Broken Bamboo Sword, any monster that's equipped with it is not going to be getting any attack boost. Cool thing about it is that it does have an effect where you can bounce a Bamboo Sword card from your field back to your hand, so the equipped monster can attack directly, which is pretty awesome. I mean, imagine equipping this to something like Great Shogun Chien, and then bouncing off maybe a Broken Bamboo Sword that was also equipped to something else, and then Great Shogun swinging at your opponent for 2,500. But the real cool thing about Cursed Bamboo Sword is whenever it goes to the graveyard, you're searching your deck for another Bamboo Sword card to add to your hand. There's plenty of ways to get this card into the graveyard. Isolde's effect can do it. If you equip it to the monsters, you can just synchro or link those monsters, or synchro, link, or even exceed summon those monsters off. This card has to go to the graveyard then, and you get the search. And I do have one other card that can help you out in this situation, and that's Foolish Burial Goods. Sends a spell trap card right from your deck to your graveyard, so you get that free search. And of course, last but not least, I run 3 copies of Golden Bamboo Sword. This is essentially a pot of greed while you have a Bamboo Sword equipped to a monster on the field. It's not once per turn. You can actually activate all 3 cards in one turn, which nets you a massive amount of draw and card advantage for your hand. I can't tell you how good that is. You just draw into the stuff you need. Alright, moving on. I have the next set of cards, which are basically all the cards that will be gathering counters. Of course, we have Gateway of the Six. This is the key card that basically helps the deck really go from great to fucking crazy. Basically, anytime a 6 Samurai monster is summoned, it gains 2 Bushido counters. Depending on how many Bushido counters you take off, depends on what effects. You remove 2, boost a 6 Samurai monster by 500 attack. You remove 4, which is the one you want to be using the most. You get a 6 Samurai monster from your deck or your graveyard back to your hand. And if you remove 6, you can actually resurrect a Chien effect monster from your graveyard. You do have Great Shogun Chien in this deck now, so you can actually turn around and play that effect more often. I can tell you right now, I've been testing this card. I've managed to do some serious loops without this card and build a pretty damn amazing field. With this card, it becomes even more insane on what you can do. Alright. One little thing is that I'm only running 2 Six Samurai United. See, unlike Gateway or even Dojo, United has a maximum number of counters that it can only be put on, so it only can hold up to 2. Gateway doesn't have a maximum number. Dojo doesn't have a maximum number. I feel that even though you can get draws off this card, Gateway and Dojo get you what you need faster. Alright? That's why I only have this card at 2. Basically because if you have this card plus Gateway, you can just take 2 cards off this and two counters off this, 2 counters off that, and just basically go for your search. I do run 3 copies of Shien Dojo. With this particular build, I feel 3 Dojos are actually better than 3 Uniteds because this card allows you to build up counters as you summon Six Samurai monsters. No maximum amount of counters can be put on this, so that you don't have to worry about that. And basically, whenever you send it into the graveyard, you can special summon a monster with a level that has lower amount of counters on it. Which makes this pretty cool because the special summoning right from a deck is actually pretty epic in this deck and helps build your board. Alright, and speaking of board building and combo extenders, 3 copies of Asceticism. I've basically laid out what card monsters can be summoned with this card when I went through the monsters. You need to have this card at 3. No reason to be running it anything less than 3. Get your monsters on the field, build your board. Card play extenders, of course you have Monster Reborn, get a monster back from the graveyard. Reinforcement of the army, get the card you need from your deck to your hand, and of course you have Soul Charge, which basically gets monsters back from your graveyard so you can actually keep building. This card is actually pretty nuts on turn 1. Alright, and with that being said, that's all the spells. With the traps, you'd be surprised I've actually whittled down the traps to only these 3 cards, and the 3 cards I am running are double-edged sword technique. Primary reason is that it's also a combo extender like Soul Charge or Monster Reborn. Get you 2 Six Samurai monsters back from the graveyard onto the field. I mean, it's so good. I mean, you can combo it with Fuma to basically allow it to pop, take minimal damage to yourself, and get a float as well, so don't forget that. Alright, so that's the main deck. Off to the extra deck. Alright, first and foremost, 2 copies of Legendary Six Samurai Shien. Level 5 Synchro, you guys know what it does. It's a quick effect. Once per turn, you're allowed to negate a spell or trap that your opponent can activates. With this and Great Shogun Shien on the field, it becomes a whole lot more oppressive to deal with. Because you can negate what you don't want your opponent to have and let pass what your opponent does, and then that's it for your opponent's move. Okay, of course, the Churia Beast. Mill 2 cards from your deck, negate its activation of spell card. It's not once per turn, so you can activate multiple times during turn. So this card plus Great Shogun Shien is even better. And of course, the other Synchro Negator that I have in here is something we got in Flames of Destruction, F.A. Dawn Dragster. Just like Shien, it's a once per turn negation, but for spells and traps. But it can also negate activated effects of face-up spell and trap cards that are on the field, which is something that Shien can't do. All right, it gives up 2 levels every time you get something, and that actually it helps out a whole lot because it's level modulation. You can actually take advantage of that with other tuners and other Six Samurai monsters to actually build into a higher synchro monsters, or even rebuild into another one. I mean, just think about this. This guy gets level low enough, you could actually use to like level 1. You could actually use a Kakamusha plus a Kizan to build into another one. If you have Monster Reborn in your deck, you can bring the first card back, and now you have multiple negations on the board. And of course, deck needs protection against monster effects. F.A. Dawn Dragster is pretty important because that you can bring it down to level 3, do to level 4, plus a Fuma, to get Crystal Wing, or you can turn around and do a level 2 and a level 3 when this card's at level 3 to get this card out as well. Alright, and that right there is it for my Synchros. On to the XZs. I run one copy of MX Saber Invoker. It's pretty easy to do with this deck. You have triple Kageki, double Elder in this, so it's pretty easy to actually bring out. You don't need... And whenever you detach a material, you actually special summon an Earth Attribute monster from your deck to your field, which is very key to this deck. Alright, one other XC's monster that I put into this deck. Basically to help out with the new end of match rules. Got like a Cowboy. Just get this card in the field. In defense mode. Pitch a material and you burn your opponent for 800 points of damage. As long as your life points are close, you can actually just push your opponent lower. And since you're only finishing the phase, effect damage is going to be very key now with those new rules in place. Okay, so on to the links. I mentioned this with the Bamboo Sword engine. This is kind of key. Isolde, Two Tails of the Noble Knights. Now normally she has two effects. When she's linked someone, you can search your deck for a monster, and then you won't be able to use that monster basically for the rest of your turn. We're not really going to be using that effect anymore. The primary reason why we want her is to get stuff to basically thin your deck out. While playing this deck, I found that only one Isolde is really necessary for this deck now, because you're using the Equip Mill to really get your searches going. A lot of times I wind up opening with at least either Broken Bamboo Sword or Golden Bamboo Sword in hand. Get her out, I mill the Cursed Bamboo Swords, and search out the cards I don't have into my hand. Activate the Broken Bamboo Sword onto a War type monster, drop all three of my Golden Bamboo Swords, and just draw like crazy. I mean, once you use up all your equip spells, yeah, you don't have to worry about using another copy of her, because we actually have other stuff in this deck that makes it pretty damn awesome. And what stuff am I running? I'll give you a hint. Knightmare Cerebus. Yeah, that's right. I got the Nightmares into this deck. It can loop enough to actually build the board very fast. Knightmare Cerebus, like all the Knightmare monsters, whenever it's swing someone, you have to discard a card, and then you wind up getting an effect based on discarding what you need. This card's effect allows you to target a special summon monster and destroy it. And then, of course, if it's co-linked, you get to draw a card, which is pretty cool. And then, of course, it also has all Knightmare monsters. They also have continuous effects. This one basically says this card, these co-linked monsters cannot be destroyed by card effects, which is actually pretty cool protection. All right. Then you have Knightmare Goblin. This card actually has the same... Yeah, all Nightmares have to hold this card. This guy just discards the drawer. But the cool thing about it is that while he's co-linked, you can actually turn around and get an extra normal summon to a zone he's pointing to, which is great for this deck. And his continuous effect basically protects any co-linked monsters from being targeted by effects. So these two guys alone, this protect all your co-linked monsters, and it just makes it harder for your opponent. Alright, and of course you have Knightmare Phoenix. Basically discard a card to pop a spell trap card on your opponent's field. Pretty awesome. Continuous effect basically allows you to prevent any co-linked monsters from being destroyed by battle. Yes, you're still going to take damage, but your monsters are going to stay in the field. So you can see how building this stuff up. Now, of course, I also run Knightmare Unicorn. Discard a card, bounce a card off your opponent's field. Epic move to help clear off any problematic monsters on your opponent's side of the field. Cool thing about it is his continuous effect, basically, depending on the number of co-linked Knightmare monsters you have in the field, you actually gain extra draws during your draw phase with this guy face up. So if you have this plus Cerebus, Goblin, and Phoenix, you're going to wind up getting like four draws during your draw phase. So good. And of course, I do run Knightmare Griffin in this deck. Knightmare Griffin Also an awesome card. Discard a card. You can select a spell or trap card from your graveyard, set it to your field, but you're not allowed to use it that turn. Still a great way to recycle. It's a continuous effect. When it's co-linked, your opponent cannot activate. Your opponent cannot. Special summon monsters cannot activate their effects unless they're linked to another monster. With you basically building your board, you can actually get the extra link going in this deck. You bounce link monsters off your opponent's field, or even pop them, and your opponent's not going to be able to use any effects from special summon monsters. Now, typically one way to seal up the extra link is to actually have Underclock Taker, and this just takes away your opponent's any ability of your opponent special summoning from your deck. I mean, from the extra deck, just because this doesn't give any zones to your opponent. Neither does Unicorn. This pointing to something like Phoenix can actually be extremely useful because you're taking down a monster by 1900 points. And even a Blue Eyes White Dragon becomes a pussycat after this card's effect goes off. Alright, and typically I'm going to show you guys how I usually build the field with the Knightmares. Typically I usually start with Knightmare, Unicorn, right here up on top, in one link zone. Then I start building into Cerebus. I then go Goblin, Phoenix, and either I end with Underclock here for the extra link, or I go for another link monster. Now, if I have this set up here, the best way to turn around and do it would be to turn around and have, where are you? Great Shogun on here. Great Shogun next to Phoenix or Cerebus on one of those empty spaces. I'm just going to put it right there. And then have a Synchro Negator over here and a Synchro Negator up here. 2 negates, controlling what your opponent can or cannot do. Plus, with this field of getting 4 extra drawers, no targeting, no destruction by card effects, and can't be destroyed by battle. It's just so great. The other field I usually typically build is sometimes I build off Goblin to go into Knightmare Griffin. In this particular case, yeah, Great Shogun can be on the field, but you're only going to get 1 negator onto it in the other extra zone. Both can actually do very good. Both ways can actually do very good and just ruin your day for your opponent. Usually if you get the extra link, your opponent's going to scoop anyway, but just having the ability to do this is so goddamn amazing. So guys, that's it for my 6 Samurai deck for the May 2018 format. Yeah, I know this profile went a bit long, but yo guys, I'm so excited to share this with you. It is insanely nutty. So if you liked the video, thumbs up. If you want to see more content like this on my channel, hit that subscribe button. Ring the notification bell to be alerted whenever I throw up new videos. And guys, I'll be seeing you in the next video. Peace out.